What is this car? This is not what I thought I was calling it. So a couple of months ago I graduated. I don't know why I said graduated. That's not true. I stopped my, I mean, I like my, okay. A couple of months ago, my freshman year of college ended. I was at a new school and I didn't know anybody there. And yeah, there's definitely a deeper story that I can go into about that school year as a whole. But in the second semester, I had to take a speech class. It was the next class that I had to take for my, there were some required classes you had to take. Everybody's got to take English. And my next one that I had to take was either technical writing or speech. And I was like, yeah, I'm definitely not taking technical writing. That sounds like a terrible class. So I took speech instead. One of the first things I noticed was there weren't a lot of freshmen in that class. So I did already feel kind of out of place. But in college, I feel like the grade that you're in or the year that you're in, honestly, isn't really even a topic of conversation. Like, I feel like most people just kind of are like, we're all in school, right? Like, I don't care if you're a freshman or not, at least for me personally. In the class, I'll be honest, I didn't really talk to anybody. And I remember the first week of class, we were assigned an introduction speech. I didn't really know what to write about. And so I kind of went with a topic that was like kind of deep and like serious. And that day that we were giving the speeches, I remember what the heck. I remember thinking that, like, as everyone was giving their speeches, because I was not the first one that day, I was thinking to myself, like, man, did I miss the mark? Like, is my speech going to be like a downer? Eventually, someone else gave a speech that also had a pretty serious topic, and I felt a little better about my topic, and that was all chill and whatnot. So I gave my speech, and once it was over, I went to sit down, and I heard the girls behind me be like, man, I loved that speech. And that did kind of inflate my ego a little bit. And then the girl who was behind me went up to go do her speech. I'm not gonna lie, bro, this girl was fine, right? Like, she was really pretty, and I was like, holy cow. This girl sitting right behind me, like, maybe I should try talking to her. And I remember I texted one of my friends about it, and I was like, dude, there's this girl behind me in English class. There's this girl behind me in English class, and she's so pretty. Like, bro, maybe this college thing's not so bad. And so basically, you know how it is when you're talking to your friends. They're like, bro, just go for it. Like, there's nothing to lose. And I was like, you know what, you're right. Next day in class, I was like, we do group work. There's probably an opportunity for me to, like, I don't know, find some reason to talk to her, right? Like, I'm surely at some point we'll be assigned to work together. And that's what I was kind of banking on. But with group work, we were usually told to work with the person who was next to us. And there was this girl that was already, like, I sat by myself in a corner, I won't lie, in the front row. I was in the very corner right next to the door. And so there was only one girl sitting next to me, and she sat 2 seats away at the other end of the table. And I usually worked with her, and she was pretty cool. And I didn't want to be a jerk and, like, one day just not work with her, because that's just kind of what became, like, the usual thing that we would do. We would just quickly do the group assignment together. We were both pretty fast, and then we'd be on our way. So I didn't want to just one day, like, without explaining to her, just, like, not work with her. Like, it kind of felt like a douchey thing to do. So I just kind of was like, you know what, I've got a whole semester in this class. I'm sure eventually I'll find a reason to talk to the girl behind me. And that's pretty much what I just waited on. And I won't lie, it was a couple of weeks had passed. Oh, Jesus. A couple of weeks passed, and I was kind of coming to the realization that I may genuinely not end up working with this girl. And I was like, man, I should probably, like, take the initiative and actually do something instead of just waiting for something to happen. And so I just kind of was like, all right, it's, time to man up. And so as the class was going on, we were giving more and more speeches, and I won't lie, I was kind of also coming to the conclusion that this girl was not really all that great. She skipped class a lot, and she definitely did not do a lot of her assignments. Like, obviously, it's a speech class. All the speeches were required. It wasn't like you can miss out and make it up later. Like, if you missed out on your speech day, you pretty much just got a zero. And she was definitely
I'm on the
missing out on
clock.
that, like, a
What you
lot.
want? Some wheels?
Oh my god, mechanic, shut up. She was missing out on them a lot, and I was just kind of like,
I'll get there as soon as I can.
man, I
Okay,
have
I got
terrible
stuff to
taste in
do.
women, but it was whatever, right? She was still really pretty, and I guess it was kind of willing to look past the flaws. Eventually, one of the days comes around, and my teacher says, "You're gonna hate me." I walked in, and there was no one in the class, and she was like, "You're gonna hate me today," and I was like, "Why? What is this build? What the heck?" Sorry, I haven't played this game in a while. I walked in the class, and she was like, you're gonna hate me. And I was like, why? What'd you do? And then she was like, we're gonna be working with different groups today. I'm gonna randomly assign groups. And, visibly I kind of was just like, ugh, whatever. But in my mind, I was like, maybe today will be the day. And no, it wasn't the day. I don't remember who I got assigned to, but it was not. It was not the girl. And it's kind of getting to the point where I was like, I'm probably just not gonna do it. Honestly, at the end of the day, it's like, am I really just gonna be a coward and not say anything? Yes, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be a coward and I'm not gonna move from my seat and I'm gonna get 100 in the class and just move on with my life. And so that's kind of just like what I decided was gonna happen. It's the second half of the semester. I could tell that her grades were getting to her and that she was kind of starting to like lock in on her classes. And so a lot of times, instead of her, because usually after class, she would just go like walk off with her friend into the building and like go sit at one of the desks or whatever in the lobby. And then I would just go back to my dorm and think to myself, like, what am I doing with my life? But towards the second half of the semester, she started walking the exact same route that I would walk to my dorm. And the first time that it happened, it was basically like a chosen moment, and I don't understand why I didn't take advantage of it. I was thinking to myself, like, once I get the opportunity to talk to her, I just gotta go ahead and take it. And literally the second I thought that, I left class and she was walking directly ahead of me by herself. And I was like, man, if there was ever a golden opportunity, it would be right now. And I didn't do anything. I just awkwardly walked behind her the entire time for like 20 minutes back to my dorm. And then we eventually split off and she went towards her apartment and I went towards my dorm and I went in and I told my roommate, like, bro, remember that girl I've been telling you about? We were literally right there and I didn't do anything. And he was like, bro, you just gotta go for it, honestly. And this is kind of a back and forth that me and my roommate had been having that whole year, where every time one of us was interested in a girl, we would kind of just be like, bro, like, just go for it. What do you have to lose? None of these people know you. It's college. It's not like they're gonna call you out by name and spread your information around or whatever. Nobody cares. But for this particular instance, it was kind of like, I guess something was telling me deep in my mind, like, just don't do it. A couple more days passed. Every now and then again, we're walking the same route, but she's usually walking with her friend. And I'm starting to come to the realization that the school year is ending. Like, I'm running out of time here. If I'm gonna do something, I gotta just go for it. And we're working on our last speech here. It's our final speech. I honestly don't even remember what I wrote about, but I wanted to make a splash. I wanted my speech to be good. I wanted to leave a lasting impression on my class, but I especially wanted to impress her, obviously. So I was working hard on my speech. The school year was coming to a close, and finally the day came around that it was the last day of class. I am crashing so much in this video. Oh my goodness. The last day of class came around, and I was like, look, this is it. It all comes down to this. And like, once again, the stars were aligning. I went to leave the class. I started walking towards my dorm, and there she was ahead of me. And as she went to go towards the direction of her apartment, where we would usually split off, she told her friend, like, you know what, let's just go for a walk. And they kept walking the exact same route all the way to my dorm. And so as it's going on, I'm thinking to myself, like, this is it. If you're going to do it, you have to do it now. This is genuinely your last chance. There's no more chances. Once she goes back, once she ends this walk, the school year is over, right? Like, it's over. I'll probably never see her again. I know I'm transferring, so I will literally never see this girl again in my life. And I was like, all right, just got to go for it. So we start to get closer and closer to my dorm, and I kind of realized that, how does this look from her perspective? Like, I've just been following her all the time after school. She probably just thinks I'm a creep. And you know how it is when you slowly convince yourself, once you start to do something that you've been scared to do, you start to convince yourself reasons why not to do it. And that's exactly what was happening. I was like, bro, I probably just look like a creep right now. This is terrible. And then I also started telling myself, like, she's with her friend, like, this is just weird, like, what am I supposed to do? And I was, like, rehearsing what I was going to say in my head. I was going to tell her friend that I liked her speech, and then I was just going to say it, like, hey, can I get you Instagram or something? And then we passed my dorm, and I'm like, no, screw it, I'm not doing it. And I walk into the dorm, put my book back down, and just sit on the bed. And then I look out the window, and there they are, still standing. They're just standing outside my dorm, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, like, what am I doing? It's literally like the stars are aligning for this to happen, and I'm just not taking advantage of it. And so I'm I feel super nervous. My hands were probably shaking. I was sweaty, and I was like, screw it. I dropped my book bag, grabbed my keys, grabbed my phone, and I jumped back up, and I literally ran out of the building. And by the time that I got out the front door of my building, she was already a little bit farther down, heading towards the edge of campus. And I was like, screw it, there's no one around. It's just her and her friend. Just go for it. So I started following behind them, you know, speed walking a little bit so I could catch up, but I didn't want to run up to them, so that's just weird. So, you know, I speed walk up to them, and right as I'm about to intercept them, once again, that little voice in my head is like, bro, this is so weird. Like, what are you doing? I'm just following these two random girls around campus to a secluded area with no one around. Like, this looks so bad. And yeah, I chickened out. That's exactly what I did. They were walking the trail. They started to loop back towards campus because there was, you know, at the edge of campus there was like a, not really a trail, but the sidewalk curls like through a little courtyard, and they started heading back into campus, and I literally just walked right past them and started walking off campus with no plan of where I was going. And I was so embarrassed that I walked, I pretended to get a phone call, turned around and walked back to my dorm in shame. It was so embarrassing. And when I got back to my dorm, my roommate was there, and I was like, you won't believe what I just did. And he was like, what? And I told him the whole story about how I followed her for like 30 minutes. It ended up literally being like 30 minutes, and just looked like a creep, and basically ruined my chances of ever making anything happen there. And yeah, he clowned me, and I just was like, you know what? I'm gonna make up for this. So that night, after a couple of hours of convincing myself, I finally just did it. I shot her a DM on Instagram, and I followed her. And she actually followed back. And I remember when it happened, I jumped up and just like yelled. And my roommate was like, what? And I showed him, and he was like, oh shoot, like you might actually have a chance. She answered my DM, and she was like, oh, this is so sweet, but I'm actually already off campus. And I was like, what? No, like she had already moved back home for the summer. And so I texted her again, and I was like, hey, like, you know, that's fine. That's cool, whatever. Thanks for responding. And then I said something along the lines of, like, where are you from? And she never answered. And honestly, it's probably for the best. But the moral of the story here is, honestly, just go for it. I mean, there's not much to lose, but also listen to your gut. In my case here, there were a lot of red flags. She was definitely not the type of girl that I would want to actually date. So it's probably just better to trust your gut. If something is really holding you back that hard, maybe it's for the best for you to just not do it. But if you have to convince yourself not to do it, you got to just go for it. Even if it doesn't work out, it's probably for the better if it doesn't work out, you know? If it's meant to happen, it'll happen. And if it's not meant to happen, then you dodged a bullet. So yeah, that's my wisdom for the day. Hope everyone else is having a great summer. That's about it. Peace out.